I'd now like to call the afternoon session of the Arlington City Council to order. And the City Council will now go into closed session at 2:36 p.m. on Tuesday, April the 12th, 2016, in accordance with the following sections of VTCA Government Code, Chapter 551.071, consultation with attorney, .072, deliberation regarding real property, and .087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. Now I'd like to call the afternoon session back to order, and our first item in the work session is our Police Department Annual Report presented by Police Chief Will Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. Will Johnson, Police Chief. Today I'm pleased to present the 2015 Arlington Police Department Annual Report. A copy of our annual report is at your place. And this presentation highlights selected accomplishments of the department this last year. The presentation will also cover some of the challenges that we faced in 2015. 2015 represented a sea change of social issues and conflict in American society. The role of policing in America was not immune from this conversation. Driven by social media, viral videos, the 24-hour news cycle, nationally, we observed a clear shift in what was required to effectively communicate with all of our stakeholders on a variety of topics, including crime, the use of force by police, and race. Four primary topics emerged from this national conversation: the use of force by police, the role of digital videos in policing, officer wellness and safety, recruitment and retention in law enforcement. We'll discuss the relevance of each of these topics today and the impact that they had on our community. A frequent question that I'm often asked is, what are the demographics of the department? As you can see from this slide, we have both a strongly diverse organization and an organization that still has room for improvement. Our greatest opportunity for growth is in the recruitment of women and Hispanics, and we have sought to improve in these areas through focused efforts in our Women's Leadership Series, our Hometown Recruiting Program, through targeted recruiting strategies and strategic partnerships, and by constantly challenging the hiring panel as we bring on new employees. What I know about diversifying the organization, however, is that diversity occurs not by achieving a singular goal to attain a specific number, but rather by creating an organizational culture by which opportunities are available for all persons. We constantly strive to achieve and maintain this type of organizational culture. The use of force to achieve lawful objectives has and always will be a focal point concerning policing in America. The public scrutiny is both welcomed and necessary for a proper functioning democratic republic. It is equally important that the public understand what they've asked their officers to do, the challenges officers face in doing the public's will, the legal framework by which officers have to conduct their jobs. There are three important points that I'm obligated to share concerning the use of force by police here in Arlington. First, the 1989 landmark case Graham v. Connor, the United States Supreme Court established the legal precedent for evaluating whether or not the use of force by police is constitutional. The Supreme Court justices wisely understood that the use of force by police often occurs in difficult environmental conditions, under immense personal stress, and understood that every use of force encounter must be evaluated by the merits of that specific incident and not judged by a sweeping generalization of circumstances. The facts must be considered from the officer's perspective and with the information that the officer had at the time that the decision was made, rather than through the clear lens of hindsight. This case is not only the standard that applies in the court of law, but is the standard that will guide our criminal investigations as we investigate the use of force by police. Secondarily, though, we believe in the value of procedural justice, and that when properly demonstrated, it can reduce the requirement to use force to achieve a lawful objective. In short, when a community invests in the procedural justice and the pillars of fairness, transparency, unbiased decision-making, and allowing people to have voice in the process, we believe we can achieve a higher degree of voluntary compliance with the law. To achieve this end, we have incorporated an emphasis on procedural justice throughout our training. This includes how we train our employees in defensive tactics and the application of force during the lawful pursuit of their duties. We have extensively incorporated reality-based training into our training curriculum, and we believe that through effective police tactics, effective police training, the use of procedural justice, we can de-escalate many instances where, absent these facts, the use of force by police may ultimately be required and legally justified. It is equally important to understand that these 2 points, Graham v. Connor and procedural justice, are not mutually exclusive. We can and should achieve both of them in the pursuit of our duties. Finally, I wanted to give you a sense of just how often do we use force here in Arlington. You can see from these numbers that the use of force represents a very small fraction of the interactions that occur within the community each and every day. In fact, 99% of all calls for service involve no force by the police at all. 99% of all individuals who are arrested are taken into custody without any injury. As a department, I believe our officers are doing a great job de-escalating scenes and using only the amount of force required to maintain their safety and to achieve lawful objectives. Even so, we understand that we must constantly strive for self-improvement, and we must constantly strive to use the least amount of force possible in the pursuit of our duties in our community. In 2015, police body cameras emerged as a leading topic of conversation in communities all across America. We engaged in this conversation and sought to educate ourselves on the benefits and the challenges of implementing a body-worn camera program within a large, complex urban police department. Last year, we partnered with the Police Executive Research Forum to pilot a body camera project. This project was designed to determine whether and if we should implement a body-worn camera project here locally and how we might construct that project. Next month, I will present information about what we learned in this pilot project to Council. Key topics for Council's consideration during next month's presentation will include transparency, public trust, the potential erosion of privacy rights for individuals that are captured in non-criminal videos, the requirement and the role of supervision and auditing in the performance of a management of digital evidence, and the budgetary implications by which we might have a thoughtful dialogue about implementing a body camera program. The final topic about the national dialogue in 2015 about policing in America rests on recruitment and retention within police. Last year, police chiefs throughout the United States reporting lagging recruitment and individuals seeking to join law enforcement. Arlington also experienced this trend. Last year, we experienced a decrease in the number of applications that we received in the recruiting process and a nominal increase of 1% in our overall attrition rate. This year, in summary, mirrored the information that I provided last June when I discussed with Council the strategic challenges that were facing the police department. As you recall, the top 3 challenges that we discussed at that time were staffing and supervision, marketplace competitiveness, and equipment and services. I believe several actions taken by Council and by the City Manager's Office last year helped us to reduce the impact of this national trend here in Arlington and helped us to establish a positive foundation for us to move forward. Some of the actions that were taken last year included the acceptance of the Department of Justice COPS hiring grant, which authorized 3 new positions within the police department and funded 12 permanently frozen positions, which were unfunded as a result of the recession. During this time, the department also received authorization for the partial deployment of the alternative work schedule in patrol. We received investments in our fleet, investments in our overall compensation strategy. On behalf of the police employees, I want to thank you for making these investments in your police department. Each of these actions had a significant improvement on our organization. As we transition from the national level to the local level, I want to share some of the activities we led in our community over the last year to address some of these concerns. So, the most important activity that we engaged in 2015 was relationship building. We participated and hosted numerous presentations, town hall meetings, university lectures, national speaking engagements concerning policing in America, procedural justice summits. We discussed questions about the police use of force and the promotion of civil rights being the responsibility of all residents within our community. We actively answered and explained police processes and hosted forums where people could see specialized police equipment and talk to subject matter experts to ask questions about how and why we use these different tools. Council members attended a great many of these forums with us in an effort to build and maintain relationships within our community. Some of these meetings were extremely difficult, emotional, and very lively conversations. And through it all, our unwavering commitment, both then and now, is this one fact: we care. We care about people. We care about providing equal protection under the law. We care about civil rights, and we care about having a relationship with those that we serve. Here is a brief video that highlights some of our efforts to build relationships, particularly within the minority youth in our community.
Now the police officers really comfort me. I didn't know what to think about the police officers before, and then when I came to Lamar, it gave me a different perspective on police officers and how are they supposed to treat the citizens. And now I feel a whole lot more comfortable talking to the police officers.
Just finishing up our first year of the Coach 5-0 program. It was an awesome year. We got the ability to go in, interact with some of the student athletes. We developed some great relationships. As the season progressed, we went to more of their events.
Coach 5-0 program is a program where the Arlington Athletic Department has teamed up with the Arlington PD to mentor young men in our football programs to make sure that we back blue, to understand that the community effort between help mentoring our young men. So the 5-0 program has meant so much to our athletes, especially we role play with the police when they come out and give our kids a different aspect and a different perspective on police work and what goes on inside the community.
Well, sometimes the police officers often give encouragement, make us feel better about ourselves. You know, when in the first playoff game, we were down and they still had confidence in us when some of our players didn't even have confidence. So that gave us the extra boost and, and help us strive forward to gain that win on our behalf.
The May program serves as a blueprint to help young men reach their highest potential. Some examples of the things we do is going to the man shop where Wally is the owner, and they've learned about financial literacy. They've learned about things such as how to tie a tie. This prepares them for a road of success. We also learn about conflict management, how to de-escalate problems, utilizing techniques to help us increase communication amongst one another. Another asset is partnering with University of Texas at Arlington through their TRIO program. This is an opportunity for young men to visit the campus, not only visit the campus, but learn about what it takes to go to college. We've seen a tremendous increase in academic influence in these young men's lives to where they will grow up in Arlington and become future leaders throughout our city.
Walmart will refer these kids over as first-time offenders to the program. They pay directly to the program. They have 30 to 35 days to finish the program. If they do that, it takes care of the issue without them being labeled and hopefully rehabilitating them to go on and do some better things in life. And so we just think it's a combination of all of these things that's made it a win-win for both the retailer, also for the department, and the families that are involved.
I think the video clearly demonstrates our passion for kids. Arlington PD has a long history of effective youth programs, including multiple mentoring opportunities, the Police Explorers Program, and the Police Athletic League. In 2015, we began 3 new programs that were highlighted in this video that have been tremendously successful. First, we developed the Mentoring Arlington Youth Program, or the MAY program. This program was inspired by President Obama's My Brother's Keeper campaign and an interaction that Lieutenant Tarek McGuire had with a wayward Arlington youth several years ago. The MAY program is a partnership with AISD, the Arlington Municipal Courts, and the Arlington Police Department to invest in the lives of junior high men and to teach them valuable life skills. Next, we created the Coach 5-0 program. This mentoring program is a partnership with our high school varsity football coaches and focuses on investing in the lives of our student athletes. Following in the death of Carl Wilson, a Martin High School student and athlete, who was murdered in January 2015 in Kennedale, I felt compelled that we had to do more. The Coach 5.0 program focuses on demonstrating to students that we care for them. We care about the things that are important in their life, like sports, and our hope is that they give us an opportunity to demonstrate that we can help them whenever they face difficult life choices. In our first year, we have helped students with homelessness issues, with poverty, with transportation issues, with getting social services just to survive. I think that this program is needed and is clearly demonstrating that we care for them beyond just their athletic skills, but that gives us an ability to connect with them on an emotional level. We've worked with our coaches to give locker room talks about how to avoid gangs, drugs, and how they should interact with the police should the police come to a location where they might find themselves. In short, we want to accomplish two things with our Coach 5.0 program. We want to invest in our kids, and we want to reduce the opportunity for a negative encounter that might occur if they find themselves in a situation where the police are called. Finally, last year we worked with senior corporate leadership with Walmart to create a diversion program for thefts occurring at the stores located in Arlington. Through this initiative, we have reduced the number of thefts the last quarter of 2015 by 36% in our 3 Arlington stores. More importantly, we are creating an opportunity for many of our young offenders to learn the consequences of their actions, but not receive the lifelong label of criminal for a minor, low-level theft offense. This program is good for business, it's good for those who qualify for a second chance, and it's good for our community. Relationships are key for the police department. This slide represents just some of the communication efforts that we have to enhance and build relationships within the community. The department currently has over 160,000 followers over 5 different social media platforms. Our communication strategy is routinely praised within the law enforcement profession as a best practice model, but more importantly, this communication strategy helps us to humanize the badge and show people that their police officers are people just like everybody else in the community. Over the last 2 years, our employees have been working together to help me refresh our organizational priorities. This happens in every organization every 5 to 10 years. However, in the context of the information that I shared earlier in the presentation about the National Dialogue in Policing, it has never been more important in our history to recommit ourselves to our core values, to effectively communicate our vision, values, and missions to the community. Our motto of service before self and honor above all speaks directly to our core values of fairness, integrity, and compassion. We will achieve this strategic plan by investing in these 5 organizational pillars: procedural justice, organizational diversity, training and employee development, excellence in execution, and community engagement. These 5 pillars will guide our future work as we seek to fulfill council and community priorities in the coming years. And now for crime. The FBI Uniform Crime Rate, or the UCR, is our barometer for measuring criminal activity in Arlington. I'm proud to report that we experienced our 6th year of decreasing crime in Arlington. Since 2009, crime is down 33%. We are down a handful of offenses compared to 2014. Within the broader context of crime in Arlington, I want to highlight some of the successes and several of the challenges that we continue to face. First, we had our lowest recorded year for homicides in 2015 since 1993. Of the 7 largest cities in North Texas, we were the only city that experienced a decrease in homicide last year. As I said, 8 homicides is the lowest number of homicides that we've experienced since 1993, and our historic average is 15 homicides. We communicated concerns in last year's annual report about domestic violence occurring within our community. We constantly work to prevent domestic violence and support domestic violence victims as they try to leave abusive relationships. On average, we respond to approximately 10,000 domestic disturbance calls every year. Approximately 40 to 50% of those calls for service involve some sort of criminality or some criminal offense. Last year was no different. However, in 2015, we initiated a multidisciplinary approach to staffing cases for repeat domestic disturbance locations. Officers and counselors conducted site visits where we would go and we would check on the well-being of those individuals that lived at those locations. We would see if they needed or desired any additional services, and we would generally just express that we care. We care about them, we care about their relationships that they're in, and we care that they don't become a victim. You can tell from these numbers that from our repeat domestic locations that they have dropped significantly based on this follow-up action that we took last year. This is a time-intensive activity for patrol officers, for counselors, and for detectives, but you can see this is time well spent in reducing the probability that somebody may be a victim of domestic violence. This translates to a greater level of personal safety and a stronger community. Burglary is a crime category that can significantly impact not only the person who was burglarized, but the perception of safety and security within a neighborhood. These offenses are also an indicator of other problems in a community, such as the drug trade, because many times offenders are breaking into homes to steal property in order to pay for a habit that they may have. In 2015, burglaries were down by 300 offenses, which represents a 12% decrease over 2014. As compared to 2009, burglaries are down a staggering 56%. This is a significant accomplishment for our community, for our officers, and for our citizens on patrol and cops mobile volunteers who are out patrolling our neighborhoods. Last year, our citizens on patrol and our cops mobile volunteers served this community by contributing more than 6,000 patrol hours within Arlington neighborhoods throughout town. And I think that we're seeing the fruits of their labor. Aside from successes in homicides, domestic violence, and burglaries, we did experience some significant challenges as it relates to violent crime last year. Across America, urban cities experienced an upward trend in violent crimes. As a nation, we were up nearly 2%. Arlington increase was 5.7%, which was in line with communities that were comparable in size. We saw this trend materialize within the last quarter of 2015, and each of our patrol districts mobilized a plan to be able to address the crime issues that were facing their particular neighborhoods that they're responsible for. For the first 2 months of 2016, we saw this trend continue with one notable exception, the introduction of gun violence in the commission of these robberies. Robberies in the months of January and February of this year were up 18%, which translates to 48 additional offenses. However, there was a 57% increase in the use of a firearm within those robberies that were committed. The tipping point for us was when a 14-year-old boy was robbed at gunpoint while walking through his neighborhood and robbed of his cell phone and his shoes. The assailants fired a round during the course of that robbery. Now, thankfully, nobody was injured, but this offense, along with the trend that we were seeing manifest itself in our community, prompted us to significantly alter our deployment strategy to address this crime trend. Operation Safety Net, which is a citywide violent crime reduction initiative focusing on guns, gangs, drugs, and robbery offenses, began on March 21st and will be operational until we see a reduction in this violent crime trend. We are aggressively focusing on our known offenders, our probationers, our parolees, and our known gang members. We are also extensively coordinating with our federal partners for enhanced prosecution opportunities by transitioning criminal cases from the state court system to the federal court system as appropriate. In the first 2 weeks of this operation, we have extended over 1,600 resource hours, conducted over 500 traffic stops, made 116 arrests, and seized 7 guns off the street. One arrest that I want to highlight is the arrest of Jamal Minor. Like many cities, a portion of our robberies can be linked to social media relationship sites and e-commerce sites. Undercover officers familiar with a series of recent robberies were monitoring social media relationship sites, and they discovered what they believed to be a ruse posting in an attempt to lure a potential victim to a location to be robbed. Officers arranged a meeting and went to the location where uniformed officers stopped and contacted Minor. Through their investigation, they indeed discovered that Minor was a serial robber. They seized a stolen weapon, they recovered stolen property, and they arrested him. Of particular note, the stolen weapon that was recovered was stolen out of a burglary of a motor vehicle offense that occurred here in Arlington. In that offense, the pistol was stolen. In addition, an AK-47 assault rifle was stolen. Unfortunately, that AK-47 has not been recovered, and it's still out on the streets as I speak. There are many other success stories involving the removal of drugs, guns, and arrests that have been made during this operation. However, more needs to be done. We will continue these focused efforts until we are confident this spike has subsided. This is just a quick reference guide to our participation in the grant world. Last year, the police department received $3 million in grants and partnered with the fire department for an additional $2.8 million in UASI grants. The total value to our community was over $5.8 million of grant dollars being invested into Arlington. We believe our active participation at the national level in topics related to procedural justice and civil rights, as well as our homeland security risk that we face in our community, is the driving factor by which we are able to be competitive in the grant world. Finally, I want to close my presentation by forecasting some issues that we're working on in 2016. Homelessness and aggressive panhandling has been brought forward in the last several weeks. We anticipate coming back either before a council subcommittee or full council before your summer break to provide an update on this topic. However, I need to provide a couple of points relative to that discussion in the interim. First, homelessness issues and aggressive panhandling issues can sometimes be related, but they're not always related. Second, it's important to remember that we do not have any facility in Arlington to serve the chronically homeless population. The Arlington Life Shelter is a great facility filling a much-needed role within our community, but it is an employment-based shelter, which means the guests must be employable within 2 weeks, they must have a Social Security card, and they must have a state-issued ID card. Many times, individuals who are chronically homeless have neither of these documents and have a real challenge being employable within 2 weeks. Finally, our street ordinance concerning panhandling was recently amended in response to a distribution of literature case which declared our previous ordinance unconstitutional. The updated ordinance allows for solicitation to occur on the curb line and the medians of near signalized intersections. Solicitations may be permissible to occur in the roadway at other locations throughout our community. Even with the expanded permissiveness of our current ordinance, we've arrested 21 individuals and 20 individuals have received citations for behaviors in contradiction to our present ordinance. It's equally important that as enforcement is taking place that we remember that being homeless is not a crime, and the criminal justice system approach to a homelessness issue is not always the best solution to deal with this problem within our community. We've already spoken about our efforts to address violent crime within our community. Inclusive in this conversation is our ongoing effort to address gang activity in Arlington. Generally speaking, gang activity in Arlington was down in 2015. We believe that there are currently 78 known gangs in Arlington, which represents a slight decrease over 2014 and a slight decrease in gang membership over the same time period. We had no gang homicides in Arlington last year. However, I've already mentioned the death of Carl Wilson. Carl Wilson died 50 feet outside of our city limits. He was one of our kids, and he died at the hands of a gang member. Following his death, we placed great amount of pressure on the gang Trill fam who was involved in that homicide. During the second half of the year, we greatly curtailed many of their activities occurring in town. Recently, however, we have noticed the emergence of a new gang that's principally based in North and South Arlington. This gang has alleged affiliations with Trill fam, and detectives and patrol officers are working to disrupt this criminal activity before they can establish command and control, if you will, over criminal operations. As it relates to gangs, our experience over the last half a dozen years has taught us that enforcement alone is a short-term solution and it is not sustainable and the community does not accept it for long periods of time. We must ensure that we place an equal emphasis on building our community and gang prevention efforts as we do enforcement efforts. Our present operational plan and our philosophy addresses both of those as we approach the gang issue within our community. In December, Council approved a contract to implement a new records management system for the police department. This is a significant technology project for us and one that will ultimately touch every line of business within the department. Currently, we have a full-time project team of 8 employees working with the vendor to develop business processes and workflow assignments so that whenever we transition to the new records management system, we can be as seamless as possible in that transition. However, as perfect as the approach might be, it's going to be a difficult challenge because it touches every single employee within the organization. So presently, we're developing employee training to assist in the transition, as well as preparing to transition over 20 years of data of our present RMS system into our new RMS system so that we do not lose any of our institutional knowledge concerning what has happened within our community. Finally, I want to provide you with a brief update on our alternative work schedule project. This project is more commonly referred to as 410s by our employees because in this system they work 4 10-hour shifts rather than 5 8-hour shifts during the week. It is designed to improve efficiencies, reduce overtime costs, improve productivity, reduce complaints, and increase job satisfaction. Presently to date, the pilot project has delivered on all fronts. However, we will continue to aggressively monitor the success of this program and our hope that in 2016 we can continue to build the business case to deploy this to the remaining 2 districts within patrol. I know that this has been a lot of information and that the report in front of you is very robust. I want to close by saying 2015 was the most difficult year personally and professionally that I've ever had in law enforcement. I was inspired by the professionalism and the character of our employees as they carried out their responsibilities and their duties each and every day, caring for the people in this community and really investing, pouring out themselves so that people can have safety, they can prosper, their kids can be safe, and that they can live a great life here in our hometown. I'm also proud of our community. Arlington has a long history of being different than most communities, for tackling difficult social issues, for being committed to valuing all people. I've observed this firsthand throughout my entire career here in Arlington, and last year was no different. I'm proud to be the chief of this organization. I'm proud for Arlington to be my home. And with that, that concludes my report, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions, comments? Ms. Wyman?
Wow. Chief, that was a fabulous report, and I just want to say thank you to you and all the officers. The programs that you showed us today are most impressive. We know that we value all of you, but your leadership has just been something that is really to be, that honors our whole city. And I just want to thank you again. There was one thing, I do have one question though. Okay, I noticed that your programs, your mentoring programs, which I think are so effective, and I wondered, do you have any, because I know we have a diverse staff and your leaders there. What about the women? Do they interact, or is there a program for the young women? I saw a lot of young men and your male officers, but is there a program where some of our female officers interact with the young women in our community?
Councilwoman, that is a wonderful question. It's a question that we've tackled all year. The short answer is yes, but before I get into the detailed answer, I want to give context to it. I was initially asked, why are we only focusing on boys? And my heartfelt answer at that moment in time is, in my entire career in law enforcement, I have never gone to a teenage girl's funeral. But I have gone to teenage boys' funerals because of street violence. And so we're focusing on boys because that's where our biggest risk is. That's where our biggest risk is as it relates to the loss of life, the biggest risk that it relates to the need for male role models within the home. However, as a father of daughters, I'm very interested in what are we doing for the girls. And so we're doing a variety of things. We've had meetings within schools where we talk about the influence of women in terms of the men that they allow in their life, and how they can influence the behavior of teenage boys by respecting themselves, respecting their bodies, respecting the things that they expect and demand for those that come into contact with them. We also have a great many collegiate athletes that are women that are part of the Arlington Police Department, and they are mentoring also for the coaches in schools and developing a mentorship program. It's just not the same scale yet for the boys, but our aspirational goal is that we continue in those efforts, because that will help us also with the recruitment issue that I spoke about improving our gender diversification within the department.
Well, I'm just going to finish real quick, but I appreciate your thoughts, and that does help enlighten us all. But I also want to say thank you, not only to you and your staff, but to your families, because I know they all stand behind you, and that means a lot every day. So I would just like to say from me, thank you to all the families that support you, men and women on our force. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, wow. I'm overwhelmed at just such positive information and all the great things that we know already here at council that our police officers provide in terms of service to the people of Arlington every day, that literally you put it on the line for our citizens daily, literally. So it's not lost upon us at council or in the neighborhoods, in the community of your value and all the things that you do to protect us. So it's definitely a true partnership. The things that you're able to do in terms of innovation and in reaching out to communities, churches, schools, youth, those are things that have helped to have an impact on things like our property crime, on having those impact where you're having less youth in at-risk situations. Lieutenant McGuire's May program is tremendous. I wish I could, single out all of your officers, and I could given the time, but particularly his, leadership and proactive desire to address issues is great. And I know that there's several other officers that support him and have their own ideas and initiatives and are daily helping folks, but he's one that was highlighted, so I'd mention him. But quite frankly, your entire command staff is doing a great job all the way down, and in any department you have challenges and opportunities, and here in Arlington we definitely have a tremendous amount of opportunities that you're thankfully at the helm of, and so I'll finish with this, that you've become the face of the Arlington Police Department, obviously, as our chief, and 2015 was a difficult year, but you gave not only the council and our mayor and city staff and Trey, but all the way down to all of our citizens faith and confidence in our department because of you and you at the helm. So your proactive history of going out and being at town hall meetings, speaking to churches, speaking to schools, your availability is huge. Your connectivity through social media, those are all things that may go unnoticed to some folks, but I promise you that they're not on the grander scale. So I'm grateful for your leadership and all the things that you're doing to protect the entire city. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, sir. I often tell the cops that in my role, I'm like a mirror. I can't create light, but I can hopefully redirect the light that they are emitting through their good work. And so all the credit goes to the line cops that are out there doing the hard work. I'm just honored to be able to tell their story in the settings that you discussed. And thank you for your support.
Mr. Gillespie.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the great job that you've done, how you represent us, and how you've positioned the police as an asset and not just as someone who stopped and give you a ticket, a positive asset in our community. Just a couple of questions on, you had mentioned women officers being one of the huge concerns. Are you pretty comfortable with the process you have in place to continue to increase the numbers there, or?
I'm not comfortable at all, honestly. I'll tell you it's a national challenge. I'll tell you that our percentage of diversification with female employees is higher than the national average, but it is the obvious greatest opportunity for improvement. Okay. It's a difficult recruiting process. We struggle particularly at different life phases that our employees go through in terms of after having children, sometimes not wanting to return to work, which I totally understand because my wife chose that path also. So I think that we have to be intentional, we have to be determined, and we have to constantly promote opportunities for women to be successful, for them to, as they're making their marketplace selections about where they would like to work, that they select Arlington because they see it offering more opportunities.
And excuse me, one final question. You mentioned national of the decrease in recruitment and retention and numbers and all, and then also us. Do you have a feel for how we compare it with what was going on in the nation? Because I think we were down like 23% or something in recruitment and some in retention. Do you have a feel for how we may have compared to what?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. So the applications received is a good internal barometer for us. But as we start really comparing ourselves to other police departments, we're really looking at the attrition rate because that's a known commodity about people that have gone through the process and are leaving. And as we look at the attrition rate, we are slightly up. I think that, and as I mentioned in my remarks, I think that there was several things that the community did specifically that helped slow our retention rate. But that will be one of the main drivers that we're watching this year and the next several years to see if there is a shift in the millennial mindset in terms of type of employment that they may seek to find.
Ms. Capehart.
Thank you, Mayor. And congratulations, Chief. This is really quite a remarkable report.
Thank you.
I mean, for crime to be down 6 years in a row and 33% since 2009, that's quite an achievement. And I know it doesn't come easy, but it says that you guys are focused on the right things and you're applying your resources and your brain power, if you will, to achieving this. So that's a very good report. And I realize it's not perfect, and we've always got another challenge, but I'm very confident that we'll continue to improve on those places where the violent crime is up. But I will say, you know, for those of us who are elected, we run into our constituents every time we step out the front door, whether it's our neighbor or we're going to the grocery store or we're going to the it doesn't matter. And I rarely hear complaints about the police department. I rarely. And I don't think that can be said in a lot of cities. They may complain that they got a ticket that they didn't think it was fair. You know, that's a whole nother thing. But they don't complain about the demeanor of if they encounter a police officer. They don't complain about aggressive behavior. They don't complain. And constituents are usually going to let us know. And I've noted that over the past several years, and I keep thinking, wow, that's really quite remarkable. So kudos to you, kudos to the entire police force, because I know you have an incredible challenge every day that I can't even imagine doing. And we're so in your debt for bringing protection to our citizens. But I want you to know, even though the citizens may not reach out to you, and I know some do, they certainly tell us. And so I think it's only fair we tell you. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Wolf.
I promise I'll be brief, but great story. You know, we all have a story to tell. And thank you so much. I just want to say, too, thank you for your officers who are a part of the neighborhoods and attend our neighborhood meetings and are always there to, with a servant's heart, to assist and help and just reach out. And I know we don't tell them that often, but thank you for getting that word out and for encouraging them to be such a part. And thank you for your leadership.
That is the lifeblood of what we do, and I will absolutely relay your commendation to them for that.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Chief, and, you know, I'll jump in on the love fest here. We do appreciate you. I want to take a minute. You know, each of us have an opportunity to personally get to know a few officers. You know, those that watch over us on Tuesdays, for example, those that we get to see in our council meetings, the various events we go to. We kind of get to know a few. And you know, for the most part, they're pretty good folks. But you know what I'm most impressed by are those encounters that I have with officers I don't know, and they're just like the ones I do. So that talks to me about a culture that's going on in the department. And of course, you have challenges, and I know you've got things you'd like to improve upon. But just on a personal level, I want to thank those that I know and have known, and those that I just run into. Your consistency and how you approach your job, your professionalism it's hard to miss. And you know, I've been fortunate in my family. We've not personally experienced crime in quite a number of years, but I know you're on the front lines of those who see it on a daily basis, and that can't be easy when you're in those situations where a family's been violated and there's been something tragic that's occurred. And while I've not had to see that, I'm confident that the way you go about discharging those particular duties have got to be so welcomed by those that are in the middle of that crisis. So I appreciate that, even though I can't speak to it because I hadn't seen it, but I know it's there. And the character of the people I've gotten to personally know over the years, again, just the highest level of praise for the culture that's there, and thank you for all that you do and all of your officers. Appreciate it.
Thank you for those comments. And sir, as you wind down your time on council, thank you for just taking a genuine interest in what we do and how we do it, and your enduring support over these years.
Chief, it's been very uplifting for me as I've gone to various conferences and so forth to hear that our police and our fire department are some of the best in the country. We know that here and living, but it's great to hear it when we're out too, because we know that we are biased as we've seen it firsthand. But the thing that really stood out to me is that when the challenges came up here, you have already been proactive and y'all are working on programs to try to take care of it. And you're not satisfied. You are working, you know, even though you're at the top of the profession, and our police department is one of the best, you're not satisfied. You are continuing on. And then the other thing that you said was that our city is unique. We are unique. We have made great strides, but yet I think one of the things that makes us the most unique is that we are continuing to try to improve our community. And the police department really sets that standard, and your community relations through many of the programs that you had just shows how much you care about our citizens and developing that relationship and all of our citizens. And that too, and your work on diversity and reaching out to our international community is to be commended. And then I am looking forward through our police academy too, being able to keep some of Arlington's finest here serving with some of Arlington's finest here in the future. But thank you for what you're doing, and we are looking forward to helping in any way we can here as we move forward to make our city even better. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, next item. It's hard to move on after that, isn't it? Man, that was a lot to digest. Next, we have our discussion of committee meetings. And Ms. Wolf, Chair of the Community Neighborhood and Development. You guys have been busy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a good meeting today, and we new for us was the opportunity to support and endorse the Parks Board's recommendation of the newest naming of a park in the southwest sector of Arlington by the fire station and the Southwest Library. There's over 2 acres of land, and they would like to, and we endorse the naming of that area as the Al Rollins Park. And so we all are familiar with his amazing contributions to the city, and we totally agreed to support their recommendation from their subcommittee, their full Parks Board, and now they will begin to pull together a plan and take that to the neighborhood and have series of meetings in that area. So that was our first work. And secondly, we got a review. If you remember, we've been working on our HUD plan, our CDBG 2016 plan. We published that document. We had public meetings, and staff reported back those who had attended. All reports were supportive of the plan as directed. We also had some written reports. So we'll be bringing that forward to full council on the 26th with that full recommendation of how to disperse and how we would like to spend and allocate that $4.6 million of community development block grants. And then finally, it was just a real pleasure to hear from Alicia and her group who's been working as we recently reestablished the neighborhood matching grant. Remember, we first started that back in '07. We carried that forward, and then we ended that in '12. And there was a great interest from the growth of our neighborhoods have really organized. So we were really excited to hear recommendations of how they have put together community meetings and assisted neighborhood groups to come forward, prepare their, I guess, what they want their grant to do, and how they will match it. So we're not quite through with it. We'll continue to meet on that topic on the 26th, and we think we'll have all that wound up. And applications were due in March. Staff reviewed all those. They went back in, and we expect those projects to begin June of 2016 and be completed by December 16th. And Mr. City Manager, I hope that we will have funds available in our current budget. So as we continue to champion strong neighborhoods, and that these 11 neighborhoods who submitted significant grants can be an advisor and a supporter for others coming forward. So that's what we have. That culminates everything.
Well, you guys have been busy, and I would be remiss if I didn't say something about Al Rollins, who has been one of a role model here in our community, all the way from being successful as a city manager to being one of our leading civil engineers in the profession, a man that many of us have looked up to, and who has also given so much back to the community and his church and helped so many, and then his kids and grandkids are continuing to make contributions here in our community. So I think it's very noteworthy and commendable that y'all selected Al for a park to be named after. And of course, he was the partner of Gene Schruckel. And what a combination that a civil engineer and a landscape architect can make there throughout that. And it's an amazing thing. And I love it, the fact that Al is still with us, and he'll get to celebrate this here also. So that's a very exciting thing. And then the other thing that this neighborhood matching grant is phenomenal, and it is a great opportunity, and some of our strongest neighborhoods have applied and come forward, and I think it'll be an example and a reason for other neighborhoods to mobilize and work together here to achieve that. And thank y'all for taking all this time to go through it. And then thank you to our citizens here for being patient with us, because we had to find the mechanism here for the funding. And now hopefully we've got it rolling, and it'll be continuous there for them to be able to help their neighborhoods. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Good day. So.
Okay, then we'll move to discussion of miscellaneous items. Do I have any appointments to boards and commissions?
No appointments, Mayor.
No appointments. Evening agenda items? Does anybody have anything they want to talk about on that? Okay. Issues relative to city and TxDOT projects. I hear rumor that they are going to start paving Cooper Street. I would like to have someone of authority actually perhaps verify that. Yeah, actually happened, huh, Robert? Not just talk about it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure about the authority thing. David Wynn, Interim Director of Public Works and Transportation. Yes, the rumor's true. Sunday night, they will begin paving, now this is weather permitting, they'll begin paving Cooper Street south from Arkansas, and then they'll make the return up the northbound side as they progress. They still have a few driveways and sidewalks to install, mostly on the northern end of the project, but once they complete the paving down on the south end, south of Arkansas, they'll move to the northern end of the project.
And they'll be doing this at night? It'll
That's
be
correct.
night work?
That's correct.
Night work. All right, great. Does anybody have any other question? Shepherd?
David, that is this Sunday of April 2016, right?
That's the plan.
Okay, all right, I
Great clarification.
just wanted to be,
Mr. Glaspie, do you have?
Traffic impact, what, are there going to be mitigation against traffic, or is it something?
Well, we expect early in the evening, we may have some issues, but we don't expect them to be big. Generally, the traffic flow is fairly light. They'll pave what I'm guessing will be the width of a lane and a half going south, so they'll retain one lane open throughout the project.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it very much. Oh, got one, Mr. Parker.
David, I have to thank you so much, because you have solved in the short time that you have been the interim director a problem that has occurred in our city for the last 30 years, okay? Nassau Court is spelled correctly for the first time in 30, it used to be Nassau for the last 30 years, but now it's spelled correctly. It's actually Nassau Court, and the people of Nassau Court really do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
They get their mail now, right?
Well, and Mr. Wynn, I'll just give you credit for Cooper Street, too. Thank you for solving that, too. We appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Might as well take that. Okay, future agenda items. Ms. Wolf.
Yes, I would like for us to put food trucks for future agenda items.
I think that's great, the studying of that and how we deal with food trucks there, I think very, very smart, very smart. Any other future agenda items? All right, with that, we'll take a quick break, and I guess I can go ahead. You may wait till after?
Wait till we come back.
Okay, wait till after. And so the audience knows, we did not complete executive session, so we're going to go back into executive session after we take a short break here for that. And so that's what's going on. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate it very much, and we'll take a quick 10-minute break and be right back here.